The war came to the Russian territory as Ukrainians using the manholes to appear behind the enemy's lines in Belgorod, and Russians are risking to be surrounded. And at the same time in Bakhmut, 99% of Wagner soldiers have already left the city, and according to Prigozhin, within just a couple of weeks this city can be lost to Ukrainians. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Hello, Ali. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. And so in this first video, one of the main propagandists of Russia, Vladimir Solovyov, he's just talking literal nonsense. I've been listening and watching this video several times, but I still could not understand whether he even speaks Russian. So pretty much yes, this propagandist has already broken. Bring a new one. And speaking about some other news which are still infused with the Russian propaganda, the Ministry of Defense of Russia decided to draft Russian men without even their need to personally appear in the military enlistment office. In addition to that, they want to start notifying people about them being summoned to the military via text messages, and as soon as this notification appears somewhere electronically, the Russian guy has only 7 days to appear in the office. Otherwise, all of his activities inside Russia will be extremely limited. The Russian authorities obviously immediately made the claims that there'll be no another partial mobilization, but to be honest, all the signs point in completely another direction. And so if and when the Russian government decides to announce the partial mobilization, it will be pretty funny to hear to their excuses. And if you don't want to miss this exact moment, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, because I just returned from my 2-week trip and I'll be making some very interesting posts in the near future. The link is down below. Alright, and now just literally a couple of words about the Western military support to Ukraine, and then we'll talk about the update from the south and the east of the country, why 99% of Wagner has left Bakhmut, and Ukrainians literally appearing behind enemy's lines in Belgorod. And first of all, as you can see from this picture, 10 Ukrainian military chaplains have finished their training with their counterparts in the British Army. Next we have a video of a Fuchs Evolution armored vehicle from a German corporation, Rheinmetall, and as you can see, this vehicle is very capable of crossing water obstacles, such as rivers. And Ukraine will be the very first recipient of these military vehicles, which will be extremely useful in their southern counteroffensive. Next we have the video by the representative of Ukrainian Armed Forces, Serhiy Naev, who is talking about that Ukrainian pilots who are fighting on the front lines in helicopters Mi-24 and Mi-8, they returned to train the young new pilots, which is a very essential part for every military in the world, for older soldiers to share their experience, which for Russians it's not going to happen because of their elite trained soldiers, most of them have been lost in Ukraine. Then we have the country of Germany, which says that now it is strongly considering to send F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. And in case this happens, Germany will become the 9th country to join the fighter jet coalition for Ukraine, in addition to France, Great Britain, the Netherlands, Poland, Denmark, Sweden, Belgium and Portugal. Which, to be honest, is a huge thing for Ukrainians, because these fighter jets, in addition to helping Ukrainians do the counteroffensive, they will most likely be used to intercept the aerial targets. Such as, for example, the missiles, which, according to the British intelligence report, in just May alone, Russia has launched approximately 300 of them. But Ukrainian air defense is pretty advanced at this point, which allowed them to intercept almost 90% of them. And as we already know, one of the most favorite Russian army tactics is to just literally destroy civilian infrastructure of Ukraine. And one of the worst examples happened last year in Ukrainian city of Bucha. But as soon as Ukrainians started to intercept more and more missiles and drones, they were able to start rebuilding their own cities. As you can see right here, this is the difference in Bucha of just 1 year. And I have approximately a dozen more comparison pictures of this city, and I uploaded all of them to my Patreon. The link will be down below. And just overall, it is estimated by the United Nations that the total cost for Ukrainian reconstruction at this very moment will be approximately $411 billion. Right, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the south and the east of Ukraine, and then we'll talk about 99% of Wagner leaving Bakhmut. And so first of all, since we already mentioned missiles and drones, an unidentified drone has fallen in Taganrog. Going all the way to the north, still to the territory of Russia, 2 unidentified drones have been also fallen in Kaluga. Now we go back to the south of Ukraine, and according to the Russian collaborator in Kherson region, Vladimir Saldo, Ukrainians did not attempt any offensive in this region, but they were doing some intelligence and reconnaissance along Dnipro river. But the main events of the south recently happened in Melitopol and in Berdyansk. Ukrainians launched several missiles against both of these cities, and Russians were able to intercept some of them. But at least one was able to reach its destination, which is the seaport in Berdyansk. And according to the locals, approximately at least 5 more loud noises have been heard in the north of Berdyansk, and then the Russian soldiers, as soon as this started to happen, they were fleeing in all directions. But so yeah, some other important and interesting events happened in the east, and first of all, according to Ukrainian sources, they were able to destroy a Russian tank and several ammunition trucks to the north of Bakhmut. Then, according to Yevgeny Prigozhin, Ukrainians were able to recapture a significant part of Berkhivka, as you can see located also to the north of Bakhmut, and this information has also been confirmed by the Institute for the Study of War. But according to the Russian collaborator in the region Denis Pushilin, the situation in Bakhmut is extremely complicated, but stable. I don't think so. Because then, according to Anna Malyar, Ukrainians were able to advance approximately 700 meters, which is half mile almost, to the south of Ivanovsky, and then the entire mile to the east of Orikhovo-Vasilievka. And the reason why Ukrainians are becoming so increasingly successful in Bakhmut, it is because, if you remember, on June 1st, Wagner promised that they will start removing their forces from the city, and as of right now, approximately 99% of the entire Wagner private military company of Bakhmut has fled all the way to the back. And according to the British intelligence report, right now Wagner is being replaced by Russian paratroopers, which are called VDV. But what's even more shocking, according to Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of Wagner, Russian conventional forces, they planted mines all the way in the back of Bakhmut, trying to kinda eliminate or terminate, annihilate retreating Wagner forces. This is just incredible what's happening within the Russian army. And just knowing how much confrontation there is between Wagner and the Ministry of Defense of Russia, according to the same Prigozhin, he expects that Bakhmut will be lost or recaptured by Ukrainians within maybe just a couple of weeks or 1.5 months tops. Because, as he mentioned, it was Wagner and Wagner alone which made this success in Bakhmut possible for Russia, and now knowing the attitude of the Ministry of Defense and all the corruption, it will be inevitable for this city to be lost. But wait, there is more. You probably already heard that there was some combat activities next to Shebekino, which is already located on the territory of Russia. And don't worry, I'm not going to go into much details because probably you already know this, but I will give you some information which is brand new. But to quickly sum it all up, according to the Russian media, Ukrainian diversion groups crossed the border and started attacking Shebekino, which is the city in Belgorod region. The main targets of these attacks were the ammunition warehouses and the concentration of Russian forces, but Russian propaganda said that these Ukrainians were destroying civilian structures. And well, surprise, surprise, the Russian propaganda lied. Because the Freedom of Russia Legion and Russian Volunteer Corps, they immediately took responsibility for this invasion. In addition to that, even the Polish Volunteer Corps took responsibilities for these hostilities, but the country of Poland denied the involvement of their citizens in these attacks. But anyways, the results were quite successful, because in just one night alone, they were able to destroy 2 Russian tanks, 1 infantry combat fighting vehicle and 1 armored vehicle. And later on, the combat activities even intensified in the small town of Novaya Tavalzhanka, which is located to the south of Belgorod. But most importantly is that the local residents were able to spot the members of these diversion groups literally appearing out of the sewers, and some of them did this behind the enemy's front lines, which potentially means that Russian soldiers remaining in this region are now at risk of being surrounded. And yes, I also collected a lot of photos and videos from this Belgorod region over the last several days, and I uploaded all of it to my Patreon. The link is down below and there's still 1 week of free access. And so, what's the reaction of the Russian media? Well, first of all, according to some military correspondents, such as Mr. Slatkov, the majority of Russian soldiers in Belgorod fighting against this diversion group are the fresh conscripts. No surprise here. And in this video from one of such Russian conscripts, he's basically complaining that according to him Ukrainians are using HIMARS against them and it will be impossible for them to halt the advancement of their forces, and approximately 80% of Russian soldiers in these regions are already eliminated. And so the main question is, who is then going to replace them? Well, we have the head of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, who is saying that he'll be more than happy to provide his Ahmad elite soldiers, because they do need to have someone with the actual military and anti-terroristic experience. And then even the head of Wagner, Evgeny Prigozhin, he also said that maybe he will send some of his private military company soldiers to defend Belgorod region, because for the last 4 days there has been not a single response from the Ministry of Defense of Russia, which just once again emphasizes the ongoing confrontations between them two. And ultimately, according to the governor of Belgorod region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, at this very moment, Russian forces do not control the small town of Novotovalzhanka. And well, if we take a look at this map, which shows us the change in territorial control over the last 24 hours, we can see that indeed a very big portion of the territory to the south of this settlement has become extremely contested. And so yes, at this very moment, the war has already entered the territory of Russia, which means that Putin has completely failed his special military operation, and it will be extremely interesting to see how it's going to develop in the near future. And if you don't want to miss any of this, just please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes 1 click. The best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member and unlock exclusive channel badges and emojis, or simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.